Welcome to this video. This series is focused on helping you develop skills in tasting wines blind in preparation for the WSET Level 3 wine exam. Basically how this works is I'm going to go through a tasting note. I will give you my impressions of how I feel that this wine shows all the way through the SAT, the WSET Systematic Approach to Tasting. And then we'll have a little bit of a pause. You can kind of consolidate your notes and kind of put together your impressions of the wine. And then I will come back and reveal exactly what it is and give a little discussion. So let's get started. Wine that I have with me for this segment is a red wine, of course, and right off the bat, this wine is clear. It is medium in intensity, and because I can actually see down through it, and if I hold it against some paper I have on the table here, I can just make out some words here. So it's not quite opaque, and it is ruby in color. I don't know if the video really shows that because of the angle, but this is ruby, which is basically a hue of red that we use to describe wines a little bit more consistently, because there's so much variability. If I were to say red, that's got a lot of different impressions to different people. But ruby is a little bit narrower range, and so medium ruby is what I'm going to call this. Condition on the nose. Wine is clean. It's got fruit, it's got everything kind of coming out of the glass, but not in a very robust manner. So I'm really going to give this a medium. I can smell things. I feel as though I'm going to be digging a little bit to get into it, but it's definitely not on the lighter side, but it's definitely not leaning up into the heavier side. So right down the middle, I'm going to call intensity as medium. And I'm going to talk about my aromatic characteristics in just a sec, but I'm going to call this as developing, because I get a sense that right off the bat, I'm getting some primary, I'm getting a little bit of secondary, and I'm even starting to feel like there's a little bit of tertiary kind of creeping in on the end. So what am I smelling? So going down the grid, floral, I get a little bit of rose, just a delicate amount, but most of what I'm smelling is kind of this red fruit quality to it. And it's red fruit that's got good ripeness to it. Things like red currant, cranberry, raspberry, and a lot of red cherry. Almost leaning to a black cherry, but not quite there. I don't think I get a lot of black fruit. It's all in the red spectrum. It's got good concentration, almost a little jamminess, but I think the jamminess comes from the fact that it's maybe like, I think the wine's got a little development, and so that sense of jamminess is kind of coming from a slight bottle age kind of quality. But and so it comes across as a little concentrated, but I'm definitely getting cranberry, red currant, and a lot of that red cherry. There's also a slight herbaceousness to this wine. So I don't know if I can go to green bell pepper, but maybe just a hint of that. To me, it's more of like that summer tomato leaf kind of quality. That's got some fruit to it, but also an herby kind of aspect. And there's a little bit of like crunchy whetstone clay kind of quality going on. And so, you know, it layers in there a little bit. I think there's a good amount of aromatics coming out of here, but just kind of in a reserved sort of check kind of manner. So what does the wine taste like? All right, so very dry. Tannin level is, well, acid is kind of medium. I don't get a lot of watering, there's a little bit, but the acid kind of melds into some tannin. I get a little bit of dry, cloying astringency on my palate. And so I'm actually gonna call medium plus on the tannin side here. So it's a dry wine, medium acids, medium plus for my acidity. I'm sorry, I got that backwards. Acid is medium, tannin is medium plus. So pretty interesting wine. Flavor profile, I get a bunch of alcohol on the palate. I get a lot of the same aromatics coming through, and as what I'm tasting on the palate that I smelled a minute ago. And it's it kind of washes away though. So when I go down the grid, my alcohol is actually probably high. Body is medium. It doesn't really give me a huge kind of presence on the palate. Flavor intensity, medium. And the finish kind of falls off sort of quickly, not like falling off the edge, but I still get a little bit of that cherry and a little bit of that sort of chocolatey kind of quality. But it just doesn't kind of continue on for a long time. So I'm not going to give it super high calls on the finish, so just medium on the finish. And on the palate, I still get a lot of that red fruit. I'm getting the currant, I'm getting the cherry, I'm getting a little bit of that herbaceousness, that kind of clay quality comes through with the tannins. It kind of creates almost like a graphite-like kind of feel to the tannins. I'm definitely getting secondary now. The little bit of toast, vanilla, chocolate kind of comes through. It's not a big, heavy oak presence. It's sort of a very subtle. So I'm thinking older oak, just enough to give it some age, soften up some tannins. This wine probably started as a little bit of a big, fullerish kind of attempt at a wine, although it kind of is a little disjointed. So I'm not really going to be able to, I think, give it a good call on balance. But it drinks okay. And a little bit of dried cranberry starts to come through, and so there's this, like I said before, this edge to tertiary that I think is there, and I called it developing. I don't think this is a wine that I'm going to want to age a lot more, because I think it's just going to start to kind of fall off. That red fruit is going to kind of fall away, and some of this tannin might actually take over, and it becomes kind of a dried out kind of wine. So quality conclusion: balance is okay, length is okay, intensity is okay, everything's kind of falling in the middle, and complexity is okay. It kind of all falls in the middle. So for me, I'm not really able to give it super high marks on any of those subcategories within the Blick. So I don't really have a lot of choice other than to call this probably as good. It's a nice drinking wine. I wouldn't mind drinking it with dinner or whatnot, but I don't think it's something that I'm not gonna go back for a second bottle. I hope I probably have it drunk by now. So I don't think there's a lot of potential for aging. So good quality wine, but drink it up. Don't put it in your cellar. Go on to the next vintage or whatever the case may be. So pretty interesting wine, but something that I don't think is like super high in quality. It doesn't really show in the glass. Good wine, solid wine. All right, so take a minute, consolidate your thoughts on this one, and we'll come back in a sec and discuss the wine. Okay, so kind of an interesting red in the respect that it drinks well right now, but I don't think anything's going to really improve. In fact, I think it might actually fall apart. But what is this? Lots of red fruit, cherry, and chocolate are always a clue to me as to what this wine is. And it also has a little bit of age to it, which is starting to kind of show in the wine. I don't think it's a wine that's really designed or meant to be aged for a long period of time. And in fact, with the price point of about $12, it's something that really is accessible and should be accessible now, rather than necessarily being something you're going to stick in the cellar. So this is from Bordeaux, and the producer here is called Chateau Eau Bicou, and Bicou, and it has the sort of broad appellation of Bordeaux. So the grapes for this wine can actually come from almost anywhere within the greater Bordeaux region. And 2018 is our vintage. So we know that it's actually got a couple years of age. They do put the blend on the back label, because a lot of wines from Bordeaux are actually blends. This is actually 85% Merlot, 10% Cabernet Sauvignon, and 5% Cabernet Franc. Alcohol here is 14.5. So ripe grapes, I think, delivering a lot of that sort of darkness and rich, kind of almost jammy red fruit. And the cherries and the chocolate, I think, are what kind of clue me in for the high percentage of Merlot here. Fairly well balanced, because I think it is Merlot. The tannins from the Cab and the Sauvignon and the Cab Franc really kind of push through a little bit. I think if I had this wine maybe a year ago, I would have been a little happier. And so that's kind of where, because I think there would have been more of that primary fruit, more of that sort of soft, rich cherry and cranberry and raspberry kind of fruit. And I think that would have balanced well in here. So I don't think this wine is really past its prime. It's in the development stages, but it's not a wine that I'm going to want to put on the rack in the cellar for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because I just don't think it's going to get any better. I think it's going to kind of slowly kind of just soften, and hopefully those tannins will soften, but I don't know if the fruit's really going to last in the long run. But pretty well made wine for the moment, good quality, affordable, everyday drinking wines that I think is a solid example of Bordeaux. All right, cheers.